Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our elf Christmas card from our new bundle featuring 6 brand new Christmas cards. Now, as you can see, I've got all my pieces here in front of me, and this card is basically just it's just a layering project. So we're going to start off with this piece here. So go ahead and locate this piece, and we're going to put this piece on top of this piece. Pretty simple. Very simple, actually. The entire process is essentially just layering the same shape on top of the previous layer. And you just have to make sure you do it in the correct sequence. So I'm going to apply my glue to the back of this. And just make sure that you go easy on the glue here. And keep it out of the little cutout areas. Now there's a tiny little area right there for our elf's hair. You want to make sure you get a little bit of glue on there. Just throw it on there and then kind of hit it with your finger to thin it out so that when we place it on the bottom layer, we don't accidentally get it shooting out anywhere. Okay, there we go. First layer's in place. If you have a little brayer, definitely use it. Make quick work out of that. Okay, so there's our first 2 layers together. Next, you want to grab this layer. Okay, so just find the layer that looks like this, and we'll flip it over, get our glue on the back, and just continue on down the line here. Very simple little project. And actually, all of the cards from this bundle are pretty much the same thing. Just a series of layers that you just need to put right on top of one another. Not much else to it. Very straightforward. Okay, so we'll grab these 2 layers that we've already glued together and pop this one on here. Now just find a focal point. I initially looked at this little cutout for the berries right here. And then, of course, I looked at the hair. I want to make sure that this little piece, because it's kind of free-flowing, you want to make sure that that stays on top of the previous layer as accurately as you can get it. Pop that down, grab that brayer, flatten it out a bit, and moving on to the next layer. So you want to find your piece that looks like this, and we'll flip it over and continue the same process. Now, as far as embellishments, there's really not much to this either. And I'm not actually doing any inking on this, mostly because all the colors that are showing through in the cutouts, and the top layer is a beautiful white pattern. And I just felt that it wasn't needed for this. So typically, I do some inking, but for this set of cards, I don't think it's necessary, especially if you can find a nice pattern, which I'm sure you can. I'm sure you've got a whole stash of beautiful pattern paper that you can use to create these cards. Okay, there we go. And the next layer is this guy here. So find your piece that looks like this, and we'll flip it over and just rock and rolling here. Rock and rolling with our little elf friend. So you'll see how easy it's going to be to create your Christmas cards this year, especially with this bundle. Now I have to find out how many of each card you can cut on a single sheet of 12 by 12. And I think I can kind of figure it out by just putting it on my mat and looking at the dimensions of this section. I want to say you could definitely at least 2, maybe 3, possibly, might be a stretch, 4 per 12 by 12 sheet. I'm going to say it's probably more like 3, which is still pretty good. Okay, so got that layer in place, hit that with the brayer, and now we're getting into some real detail here. So we're going to flip this over and work the perimeter as efficiently as we can. And then here we're going to get into some details, and we do want to hit some of these details with a little bit of glue. You don't need to cake the glue on. That's just going to result in a huge mess. And then just kind of rub it with your fingers to thin it out so that when you do place it down on the previous layers, it doesn't go spilling everywhere. okay? And I'm kind of looking at the facial features on my elf, and then kind of shifting my gaze down to the bottom, making sure that all of that is lined up nicely, and it is. And that looks great. Okay, just roll that down. And this is the last piece here. This is that pattern piece that I was telling you. You can see the beautiful little pattern on there. And this is the DCWV LeBlanc stack. Okay, so kind of very similar to the previous layer. Let's get that glue around the perimeter, and then we'll just do a few dots around the little details here. Now I kind of did a line instead of a dot there, and that's okay. As long as you take your finger and kind of thin that out, you can dab it if that's easier for you. Just kind of spread that glue out so that when we do put it down, it doesn't go shooting out, and kind of, we don't want it to blemish the project. There we go, beautiful, perfect. Well, that worked out nicely. Okay, nice and gentle there with that last press. We'll go easy with the brayer here. Beautiful. Beautiful, dimensional, and very impressive. Okay, so we've got our card base here. Now, one thing I want to point out is that on this card base, you'll notice that there are 3 little dots right at the top, and those 3 dots correspond to this point, and this little valley, okay? The point and the valley. And you simply just want to make sure that you line it up with all 3 of those points, just like that. And then visually, just make sure that you have a nice border here on the left and the right. Now, we're actually using some foam squares to give this a little bit more dimension. And I have some nice thin ones that I got out of a scrapbook magazine, but the traditional ones that you get from Michael's or Joann's or even online are fine. This thing is very, very thick, very stiff, so you probably don't even need that much. I think a few will do. I'm going to put one more on the bottom here, and then just kind of give it the old push test just to make sure that it's sitting nice and sturdy. Sometimes if you're only using a couple layers of cardstock, you'll notice that well, there might be areas that kind of sag or whatever, and in that case we'd add some more foam squares. But this thing, it's I think 5 or 6, maybe 7 layers thick, so you don't even need to worry about using too many of these foam squares. It'll be overkill. And as long as it stays in place, this thing's going to stay nice and flat for us because of the amount of layers we have. Okay, so again, just want to match that up with those 3 little dots. I don't want to draw them in, but you'll see them. Okay, and there we go, just like that. Nice and dimensional. And that looks pretty straight. I'll take it. We can open that up. This is our little panel that goes inside here. This is where you're going to write your little sentiment or do your stamping, or if you're fancy, you can have your machine do you can have it write actually with the pen tools that some of these machines have, especially the Cricut Explorer, Cricut Maker. Okay, and you want to get that nice and centered inside so that you have a mostly even border all the way around. And that looks good. I'll grab my brayer, press that down. And you can see this one, this one has a few more layers than some of the other ones in this set, but it's really adorable. Okay, so now we also have this little section for your caption. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this white section and glue it to the top half of, in my case, I have a gold foil here. You'll notice there's kind of a little valley here. It's very subtle, but you want to make sure that you just make sure it's flush at the top, flush on the sides, and that will do it. So we can flip this over, and let's see here. I might use a thicker foam square for this, since that area there, the top area, has so many layers. I want to try to get it to roughly the same height. Okay, and keep the white portion up on top. Try to get that nice and centered. I'm actually going to put this down on my table and find my center point there. There's my center. Okay, and I'm using my mat to try to get this nice and centered there. Also want to make sure that you keep almost as even of an area between this and the bottom as well as this section here. If it's off by a smidge, it's not the end of the world. But there it is, beautiful card, very quick. And just like every card from Dreaming Tree, we have a coordinating envelope to go with it. This one features some holly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by putting glue around the holly, just around the holly. Okay, and a little bit here down the center on that little vein. And then I'll take this piece and I'm going to put glue around the perimeter. I don't want to put glue inside of this section because I don't know exactly where it needs to go. And we want to avoid any glue showing through this cutout. So we're kind of gluing in two sections. And then just pop that right in the center. Try to make sure you have an even border all the way around. Press that down. Okay, there you go. And then we just take the flaps, bring them in, put a little bit of glue along the inside of each of these flaps, starting at this point here, and then take the bottom, flip it up, and press down. And that's all it takes to make a beautiful envelope. Machine's doing all the work for you. Okay, so there you go. And as you can see, take our beautiful card, and I should wait until it's more dry, but there you go. Fits beautifully and is ready to go. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you make this or any of the cards from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type it in. You can type in this address that you see here at the bottom. So happy card making, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and also please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.